Welcome to the story of the first FIFA World Cup. Globe showing Europe-Africa soccer ball. It all began in 1930, when football's greatest dream became reality. The first ever FIFA World Cup was hosted by Uruguay, a country with passion, pride, and a footballing spirit like no other. The tournament was played across 3 stadiums in Montevideo, Estadio Centenario, Estadio Positos, and Estadio Parque Central. These grounds witnessed the birth of international football glory. 16 teams were invited, but only 13 nations made the journey. From South America, Europe, and North America. South America: Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Paraguay, Peru, Bolivia. Europe: France, Belgium, Romania, and Yugoslavia. North America: United States and Mexico. Cross swords, the group stage gave us some thrilling action. Some matches were one-sided demolitions, like Argentina's 6-3 win over Mexico, while others were nail-biting close encounters, like Uruguay's 1-0 win over Peru. Trophy: the road to glory. Uruguay and Argentina dominated their groups and crushed their opponents in the semifinals. The grand finale, Uruguay versus Argentina, July 30th, 1930, became a match for the ages. In front of 93,000 roaring fans at Estadio Centenario, Uruguay triumphed 4-2, lifting the very first World Cup trophy. Glowing star player highlights. Guillermo Stabil, Argentina, finished as top scorer with 8 goals, setting the first ever World Cup scoring record. José Nasazi, Uruguay, led his team as a rock-solid captain, the player of the tournament in many fans' eyes, and Hector Scarone, Pedro Saya, and Hector Castro were the players to watch, true legends of the early era. Scroll fun facts and news of 1930. All matches were played in Montevideo. No air travel needed. The World Cup trophy was called the Jules Rimet Trophy. Some European teams almost didn't come due to the long sea journey. And after Uruguay's victory, the nation declared a national holiday. Party popper. Fire closing hook. The 1930 FIFA World Cup wasn't just a tournament. It was the birth of football's greatest tradition. From 13 teams to billions of fans today, this is where it all began. Clapperboard, stay tuned as we relive the goals, drama, and unforgettable stories of the first FIFA World Cup. In July 1930, the football world witnessed history as the first FIFA World Cup kicked off in Uruguay, a small South American nation that had already made its mark by winning Olympic gold medals in 1924 and 1928. Chosen as hosts in recognition of their footballing excellence and to celebrate the centenary of their constitution, Uruguay prepared the Grand Estadio Centenario in Montevideo, an architectural masterpiece built in record time, to serve as the main stage of the tournament, while 2 other stadiums, Estadio Positos and Estadio Parque Central, hosted additional matches. 13 teams participated in this historic event. 7 from South America: Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Peru. 4 from Europe: France, Belgium, Romania, and Yugoslavia. And 2 from North America, the United States and Mexico. Although 16 nations were invited, the long and costly sea voyage discouraged some from making the trip. The teams were divided into 4 groups. 1 group of 4 and 3 groups of 3, with only the group winners advancing to the semifinals. The format was simple but intense. A single round robin in each group, and every match mattered. The atmosphere in Montevideo was electric. Football fans from across the continent poured into the city to witness history in the making. From the very first whistle, the competition revealed both dominance and drama, with some matches being one-sided thrashings and others decided by the narrowest of margins. France opened the tournament with a 4-1 win over Mexico, marking the first ever World Cup goal, scored by Lucien Laurent. Argentina, led by the prolific Guillermo Stabil, crushed Mexico 6-3 in a high-scoring spectacle that would be remembered as one of the great attacking performances of the tournament. Yugoslavia stunned many with their disciplined play, defeating Brazil 2-1 and then demolishing Bolivia 4-0 to win their group. The United States, representing North America with surprising strength, recorded 2 dominant 3-0 victories over Belgium and Paraguay before meeting Argentina in the semifinals. Uruguay, the hosts and favorites, began their campaign with a hard-fought 1-0 win over Peru and followed it with a 4-0 dismantling of Romania, showing both defensive resilience and attacking flair. In total, 18 matches were played, yielding 70 goals, an average of nearly 4 per game, illustrating the open, attacking nature of football at the time. As the group stages concluded, Argentina, Yugoslavia, Uruguay, and the United States emerged as the semi-finalists, each having displayed moments of brilliance. The semi-finals, however, were brutally one-sided. Argentina overwhelmed the United States 6-1, with Stable scoring twice, while Uruguay crushed Yugoslavia by the same scoreline, thanks to the attacking partnership of Pedro Saya, Santos Iriarte, and Hector Scarone. These two 6-1 semifinals showed that South American teams were a class above their opponents and set the stage for a continental showdown between Uruguay and Argentina in the final, a rematch of the 1928 Olympic gold medal game. The final, played on July 30th, 1930, at Estadio Centenario, was more than just a match. It was a clash of pride, passion, and national honor. Over 90,000 spectators packed the stands, with thousands more outside, creating a thunderous, emotional atmosphere. Before the game, there was even controversy about which ball to use. Argentina insisted on their own, while Uruguay demanded theirs. FIFA's compromise was symbolic. The first half would be played with the Argentine ball, and the second with Uruguay's. When the match began, the intensity was fierce. Pablo Dorado gave Uruguay an early lead, but Argentina struck back through Carlos Pucel and Guillermo Stable to take a 2-1 advantage at halftime. As the second half began, the hosts roared back to life. Goals from Pedro Saya, Santos Iriarte, and Hector Castro completed a stunning comeback, giving Uruguay a 4-2 victory and making them the first ever World Cup champions. The celebrations in Montevideo were indescribable. The government declared a national holiday, and jubilant crowds flooded the streets waving flags and singing anthems. In Argentina, disappointment turned to anger, and reports of riots reflected how deeply this new tournament already meant to people. Statistically, Uruguay's campaign was flawless. They played 4 matches, won all 4, scored 15 goals, and conceded just 3. Argentina finished with 3 wins and 1 loss, scoring 18 goals and conceding 11. The United States and Yugoslavia, both semi-finalists, showed commendable performance but could not match the South American giants. At the bottom of the rankings were Bolivia and Mexico, each losing both their matches. In terms of individual brilliance, Guillermo Stable emerged as the tournament's top scorer with 8 goals in just 4 appearances, setting a record that would stand for years. His name went down in history as the first ever World Cup Golden Boot winner. Another standout was José Nasazzi, Uruguay's captain, whose leadership and defensive prowess earned him recognition as the unofficial player of the tournament. Pedro Saya's creativity, Iriarte's thunderous left foot, and Scarone's playmaking made Uruguay's attack nearly unstoppable. Meanwhile, players like Bert Patenaude of the United States, who scored the first hat-trick in World Cup history, showed that even outside South America, footballing talent was beginning to emerge. There were moments of pure drama and tension throughout the tournament. The match between France and Argentina was fiercely contested, with the referee mistakenly ending the game 6 minutes early before restarting it amid confusion. In another controversial moment, Yugoslavia's players protested a disallowed goal in their semi-final against Uruguay, believing it could have changed the outcome. Yet despite the chaos and occasional rough tackles, the spirit of sportsmanship prevailed. The newspapers of the time hailed Uruguay's organization of the event as a triumph. All matches were held in Montevideo due to the lack of infrastructure elsewhere, making the city the beating heart of world football for that month. Estadio Centenario, with its monumental tower and capacity crowd, became a symbol of football glory. Built in just 9 months, it stood as a monument to Uruguay's passion and determination. Beyond the pitch, the 1930 World Cup was filled with remarkable stories. European teams had to sail for weeks across the Atlantic to participate. Romania's team, for instance, was personally selected by their king, who gave players 3 months off work to compete. The French squad carried with them the pioneering spirit of European football, while the United States surprised everyone with their athleticism and teamwork. The tournament also highlighted the challenges of early football organization. There were no substitutes allowed, refereeing was often inconsistent, and each team brought their own balls. Yet these imperfections added to the charm of the inaugural competition. The global media covered the event with fascination. Newspapers called it the World Football Championship, and photographs of packed stands and cheering crowds spread across continents. After Uruguay's victory, their captain Nasazi lifted the Jules Rimet Trophy, the first ever awarded, and his team's names were etched into sporting immortality. The legacy of this tournament is immense. It demonstrated that football could unite nations despite distances and rivalries. It also revealed the tactical and stylistic contrasts that would define the sport for decades: South America's fluid, attacking flair versus Europe's structured discipline. Uruguay's victory made them the first country to hold both the Olympic and World Cup titles simultaneously, cementing their dominance in early international football. The 1930 World Cup gave the world its first legends: Stabil, Nasazi, Scarone, Saya, Iriarte, and many more. It gave us the first records, the first goal, first hat-trick, first final, first champions. It gave us both one-sided thrashings like Argentina's 6-3 over Mexico and Uruguay's 6-1 over Yugoslavia, and close, nerve-wracking duels like Uruguay's 1-0 over Peru. It gave us the first hints of how football could evoke national pride and identity on a global stage. By the time the final whistle blew and Uruguay were crowned champions, the football world had changed forever. The 1930 FIFA World Cup was more than just a tournament. It was the birth of a global phenomenon, played on the soil of a small but mighty nation whose passion for the game ignited a fire that would spread to every corner of the planet. The story of this first World Cup remains one of courage, unity, and the universal love of football. A timeless tale of triumph and legacy born under the bright sky of Montevideo. And so, as the dust settled over the Estadio Centenario and the echoes of cheering slowly faded into the night, the world of football was forever changed. Uruguay stood tall, not just as champions but as pioneers. They had given birth to a dream that would grow beyond imagination. The 1930 FIFA World Cup wasn't just a competition. It was the beginning of a tradition that would unite generations, ignite passions, and write stories that would live forever. What started with 13 teams and a handful of packed stadiums in Montevideo would one day evolve into the greatest sporting event on Earth. A spectacle watched by billions, played in every corner of the globe, and celebrated by hearts beating to the rhythm of the same beautiful game. The heroes of 1930, Nasazi's leadership, Stabil's goals, Iriarte's strikes, Saya's creativity, became the first names in football's eternal book of legends. Their triumph showed that football was more than sport. It was identity, pride, and emotion woven together. The one-sided wins, the close calls, the roars of victory, and even the tears of defeat laid the foundation for what every nation now dreams of: the golden glory of lifting the World Cup. From that July evening in Montevideo, the spirit of football began its endless journey. Decade after decade, through changing times and across every continent, that same spirit burns bright, reminding us that all of it began here, in 1930, when Uruguay showed the world what football could mean. The story of the first FIFA World Cup isn't just about who won or lost. It's about how the game was born on the world's grandest stage. It's about courage, unity, and the beginning of something immortal. Because from that day forward, football was no longer just a game, it was the world's heartbeat.